Good. So you're all very welcome here today to our session titled Pioneering Your Career. Really excited to see what we learn today. So we'll start the session by introducing you to Ken Finnegan, who's the CEO of Tangent, who'd like to open the session with a few words for all of us. Over to you,
Hello,
Ken.
everybody. Thanks very much, Anya. Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome to a virtual Tangent this afternoon. So I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us here today to pioneer your career. We are very humbled that you're participating on this webinar this afternoon. But more importantly, actually, I want to also say congratulations to you for taking time to advance your career. Tangent is Trinity's ideas workspace, and we provide many types of programs to get you where you want to get in life. We've a series of wonderful engagement activities, educational programs, and entrepreneurship activities you can participate in. I wanted to kind of maybe just talk about some of the values that participants on our programs leave. So when they join Tangent, everybody has an idea that maybe they want to develop, maybe they want to enhance their own career. They might feel stagnant in the position that they're in at the moment. There might be an opportunity, but they just feel like they don't have the tools to advance that opportunity as well. And what we see in Tangent and what we want our students to leave with is first and foremost confidence, right? Confidence is everybody recognizes the innovator and the entrepreneurial person. It seems like they walk into a room and they've lots of swagger and confidence. So we've seen students, and we see students every year come into us. And when I say students, I talk about a Tangent student, and a Tangent student is from 17 to 70. So we've got all walks of life from many different backgrounds, and has lots of different stages of their life. But confidence is the number one thing that people leave Tangent with. It's like, if you participate in one of our programs, you will learn the tools, you'll learn the skills, but you'll also gain the confidence to take your ideas and apply them into your business, apply them into where you're currently working, or maybe you want to set up your own thing. You'll get the confidence there. And this idea of agility and adaptability, being able to move and respond to the world we live in, and being able to adapt, having that mindset of kind of like not being kind of like threatened or fearful of change, but actually change can be a good thing, and there's opportunity in change. So if you recognize these kind of characteristics, if you have ideas, if you have ambitions, if you have a desire for growth and a desire for change in your professional life, you're in the right place and you're taking the right first steps today. But there's much more than that as well on our postgraduate programs, right? You're going to be surrounded by a group of people who are motivated and have the same motivations. So you'll be motivated by just the surroundings, by your peers on your groups. A common question that we always get is like, how much does it cost to do a postgraduate program in Tangent? And I'm happy to say that we are the least expensive or most inexpensive unit within Trinity to get a postgraduate program from. Springboard fund many of our postgraduate programs. So you can get up to 90% if you're in employment, or 100% if you're in unemployment. And another great thing is you don't need to come to Dublin. We do have multiple programs running in Dublin, but you can also participate in Merits in Nason, County Kildare in one of our programs, and also in Kilkenny. So it's the first time we've ever been in Kilkenny on our creative and cultural entrepreneurship program as well. So there's many ways to participate. There's many locations to participate. So if you have an idea, and if you have the motivation and desire to change where you're at the moment, you're in the right place. And I just want to I'll be quick here, but give some examples of some of the journeys people like yourselves have gone on. We've had some of my favorites students over the years. We've had a couple of a mother and daughter who are fashion designers. They have a clothing store over in Galway. I won't mention the clothing store here, but they've they've participated on the mother participated on one program, her daughter participated in another program, and earlier this year we were delighted to see that not only are they designing fashionable clothes, but they were also in Paris Fashion Week. And it's the confidence they'll always attribute the confidence they got from participating in the program, learning how to pitch their idea, develop innovative business models, etc. And now they are gone from a small shop in Galway to Paris Fashion Week. So we're really proud of those guys. We also had an accountant who went from doing the books to making her own vegan chocolate. So it's very, very different places in life compared to fashion. But again, people come with their ideas and they want to turn their ideas into impact, whether it's their own or start up their own companies or implement new innovations in their current employment. And there's lots more examples. We've had approximately 600-700 postgraduates through our programs in the past few years, and every single one of them have their own story to tell. So in the next hour, this workshop, this hour is split into two parts. The first part will look at what you can do yourself. So we have the wonderful Lucy McKenna, learning and development specialist and Tangent course contributor. She's going to deliver a career workshop in designing your career. And so in this short workshop, we'll take you through a simple but effective tool you can use when reflecting on your career, exploring your options and considering next steps. The design thinking approach puts you and your needs at the center of the process, resulting in career insights and decisions that can be sometimes be surprising, but will ultimately work for you. So these are things, I guess it's like this is a demonstration of what you can do for yourself and how you can maybe create that pathway. And design thinking is a tool that we use across all our programs in Tangent. And I'm sure Lucy will talk to what the design thinking framework looks like. The second part of the hour today is to look outside. What's happening in the world beyond kind of like Trinity, beyond their own circumstances and our own jobs. And there is a lot going on. You look at government policies at the moment, and the term lifelong learning appears everywhere. The world is so dynamic. The world is changing so much these days. How do we take control? How do we not feel intimidated by that change, and as I said earlier on, look at change as an opportunity. So we have a panel discussion today. We've entitled "What Employers Want: The Future of Work," and we're joined by our very own colleague Orla Bannon, the Director of Trinity Career Service, and Emma Keller, Director of the People Group, which will be chaired by our very own Anya Phelan. So what does the future look like in view of some leading HR talent management experts? This session will provide insights on everything from how to professionally pivot or return to work to the importance of developing soft skills and future-facing jobs. So again, to reiterate, congratulations, everybody. This hopefully will be the first step for you taking control and designing your future, designing your career. We would love to see you participate in programs in Tangent, and I'm going to hand back over to Anya now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Great for everybody to have the chance to meet you and hear about some of the past successes. I guess for me now, it's to hand over to you, Lucy, who's going to share some interesting thoughts and ideas with us all.
Thank you, Anya. Hello, everyone. My session is titled Career Design. It'll be a short workshop, but I'm hoping that you will get something from it. So just to introduce myself, I'm Lucy. I do a lot with careers and career design, but I want to start by talking about the human being. So I am a lot of things. My earlier roles were as daughter and sister, friend and girlfriend, and in the last few years, I've now graduated to parent. These jobs are all very wonderful, but the pay is terrible. The hours are really tough. But this is a very core part of who I am. In order to make money, I run my own business. I'm a co-founder in a company called the Brave Lab, and we do lots of work with Tangent. We are learning designers, facilitators, and coaches, and work with organizations to really build cultures that can adapt and can innovate as the world changes outside, as Ken has already referenced. We are living in a very dynamic world. A lot of what we do is about finding problems. and solving them. And really, I'm a big asker of why and why not. And I do like to challenge the status quo and the systems that we are currently working with. And that's often what we do when we go into organizations, is really understand that status quo and start to ask questions. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also an avid cycler. I cycle actively as much as I can, except I'm not a big fan of hills and bikes. So I'm really looking forward to getting that electric bike at some stage. So we are all more than what we do for our career. But today I want to talk about thinking about our career. And we can't think about our career without thinking about ourselves. But where I want to start with this is design thinking, and Ken already mentioned this. So design thinking is something that is used across Tangent programs. It's a framework or a tool that we use in all of the courses. And what it is a methodology used by designers to solve complex problems and find desirable solutions. But the key thing about design thinking is that it's a form of human-centered design. So it really focuses on the user or the people who have the problem and create solutions that work for them, okay? Before I get into the career aspect of this, I want to talk you through the design thinking process really, really quickly, okay? So this is the Stanford D-School model. It's a 5-stage process, and I'll try to explain it as best as I can in the time period that we have, okay? So it's full of, it's 5 stages. This is a methodology used, for example, if you're an organization and you are facing a particularly difficult challenge within the organization, or if you are somebody who has identified a problem in the world and you want to come up with a solution for that, a business idea that you want to take forward, okay? So in this case, what you do, the first stage of the design thinking process is empathy, right? So this is where you learn as much as possible about the problem you're trying to solve and the people who are experiencing that problem. So it's really important to connect with the users, the people who are experiencing that problem on a day-to-day basis. It's only through engaging with them, doing research and understanding more about the problem and the people that we can identify the real issues that need to be solved and the needs that the user has, okay? And that puts us in a much better position to be able to come up with ideas to actually tackle the problem. Now, generally when we have a problem, the stage that we jump to straight away is ideation. If someone comes to us with a problem, we'll jump to solutions. It's our natural thing. But the more time we spend in trying to understand the problem and understand the people who experience it, the more likely that we're going to come up with ideas that really work. So you come up with ideas, and then the 4th stage is you build a prototype of those ideas, a representation, so that you can get the idea out there and get it back in front of the people who are experiencing the problem. And test it, see if it works. Has your solution, your idea that you've come up with, has it been effective? Does it work? But the really key important piece of the design thinking process is this. It is an iterative process. This is something that you just don't do this once and then everything's sorted, right? You do it on an ongoing basis. And you might get to this stage and realize, you know what, the solution that we come up with doesn't work. And you go back and you learn a little bit more about the problem and the users and run the process again. Or maybe you'll just go back to ideation, okay? So I know this is a real quick fire review on what the design thinking process is, but this is a tool that is used successfully in organizations to tackle complex issues, or with people who are trying to start up businesses to really find business ideas that are going to work for their target audience. So I mentioned that this is the D-School version of design thinking, and it was 2 professors from that design school in Stanford that come up with this idea of using this model to look at your career, okay, or look at your life even more generally. So yeah, just the key pieces about the process is it puts the user at the center of the design process. It focuses on the problems and needs of the user. There's no such thing as a bad idea in this process as well. And failing is a good thing because you learn from it, okay? So these two professors, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, have said, well, what's one of the most complex things that we have to navigate in our life? And it's like, what do I want to do with my life? How do I want to build my career? And they really started to think about, well, how can we use this to tackle our career? Okay. So let me show you how you can use this model to now think about your career. I don't know if I can see the chat actually. I think I can. We'll see. Anyone want to put up in the chat, who is the user of your career, so to speak? I don't know if I'll be able to see this. Oh, Sharon's raised a hand. I don't know if you can talk or if you can add it to the chat. Is that possible, Anya? Can someone add to chat?
Yeah, Hazel there is manning the chat, Lucy.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've just opened it up there for everyone.
Okay. Causing logistical issues, so I answered them. Who's the main user of your career?
There.
So my employer, we have myself. I'm the main user. Yes. Yes, you are the main user. Okay. It may feel that other people are, but you are the main person that we need to be focusing on when we are looking at your career. Okay. So what do you do at the empathy phase if you're using this model to look at your career? Well, you understand as much as possible about yourself. What is important to me? What engages me? What do I like? What do I dislike? What's my skill set? And what are my dreams for the work that I might have? Or I use work and life interchangeably because they do bleed into each other, right? It's very hard to just separate out career and life, okay? So really turning the lens in and understanding as much as about yourself, what your needs are, okay? Once you do take the time to reflect on that, you can identify the specific needs or wants that you might have that need to be made at this moment in your life. And this will change over time, which is why I like the design thinking process, because it's iterative, okay? Once you have considered this, then you're in a much better position to look out into the world and say, well, what are the things that are available to me out in the world? Oftentimes when we're going about either, regardless whether it's change in career or change in job, or looking internally for change, or exploring what else that you can do in the existing role that you have, we often look outward and say, well, what's out there? But the more time you spend turning inward, the more likely you're going to be able to make really good, impactful decisions about your career. So then you can then go out into the world and see what might match your needs that you might have in this moment in time. Okay. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of how to prototype in your career, but, rather than taking a leap into something, talking to people who may have done it before or who are in that situation, is a really good way of prototyping or testing out if something might be of interest to you. And then you reflect on it. Is this something that might work? Okay. And as I said before, the fact that this is an iterative process is really key, because our needs in regard to our life and career change all the time, right? So it is something that we need to check in from time to time. So this is all very grand, but what are some of the practical steps that you can be taking? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to consider, and I want you to take a few minutes. Okay. I want you to think, of someone you admire, okay? Or who maybe inspires you, all right? And I want you to think, what is it about them? Why do I admire them? And then I want you to come up with 2 or 3 words that describe that person, or if you have a couple of people in mind, those people, okay? So just take a minute to do that. And if you're happy to do so, throw some of those words. You don't need to put the person, you can keep that to yourself, but you can put some of the words up in the chat. So I'm just going to give you a minute. And if you think of the words, you can throw them up into the chat. nice. Thanks, Erica. Dominique. Determined, fearless, advocate, unafraid, passionate, inspiring, passionate, intelligent, some great words. In control, brave, wise. Nice. Yeah. Super. Loads of words coming up there. What do you think these words might represent for you? What do you think they are? And again, you can add it up in the chat. Building blocks, nice in there. Really like foundations, yeah. I really like that description, actually. Our potential weaknesses and strengths, that's an interesting observation, Amy. Values, yes, positive characteristics. Values is one of the words that we would use to describe this. And a value is something that is important to you, and it actually drives all your decisions making, everything that goes on in the background. And if you are living a life that is not aligned with your values, you mightn't necessarily identify it at that, but you can feel a discomfort of sorts, okay? And it's often said it's the people that we admire, the things that we identify in them as the reason we admire them, those can really give you indicators to what your values are, okay? So sometimes we can be in a life or a career that allows us to really live those core values. And sometimes we might feel a bit of a conflict there as well. So this is one of the first steps in starting to tune in to yourself. What is important to me? What are the values that I hold that are sitting there driving the decisions that I make, and really influencing the steps that I take in my life, okay? And it's a really good way to, if you're in a career or a role that doesn't work for you, really tuning into, well, is there a value being challenged here for me? Is a really good starting point to explore, you know, if it's something that you want to continue working with, or if you want to be looking elsewhere. And I think as well, when you're looking, if you're someone that's out there and you're looking for work, identifying these values can be a real guide in sort of saying, well, is this the type of organization that I think that I will be able to live this value? Okay, so really just a simple exploration of values can be a really good way to help you in this kind of process of thinking about how do you want to design your career. There are loads of tools out there on the interwebs on how to identify values. This is just one little technique, but you will find loads online that might be able to help you identify more for yourself. Okay, another practical tool that I find, because I really like practical tools in thinking about your job, that we have developed is a kind of a career design tool. Okay, call it a tool, call it a worksheet, whatever you like. So this idea of tuning in is not something that's just identified through this design thinking process. I'm actually doing a leadership program at the minute on regenerative leadership. And one of the first key pieces of that is really that turning the lens in, understanding who you are. If you're going to be able to support people who are navigating the change that's happening in the world and the changes that are happening in the world, you need to understand who you are to start with. And there's also a paper by Deloitte, of all people, on called Roots and Shoots. You can look it up. Actually, I might be able to put it into the chat. I'll find it and I'll get it into the chat during the panel. And they really looked at this idea that you need to look at your roots and your shoots. And the roots is the things that you need to do there is rest and reflect and connect to your community. That's a way of really nurturing yourself so that you can go out into the world and you can make good decisions and that you can do good things. I'll find the links so that you can have a look at that afterwards. But another practical way of like reflecting on jobs and the type of work that you might like, you can use this career design tool. And I'm just going to show it to you now. I will also share the link with you so that you will see it. So if you bear with me for 1 minute, I'm just going to jump into another screen. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so this is a worksheet that you can use to think about the type of work that you like. Forget about the job, the title of the job, but what are your needs in regards to a job that you will do, okay? And this particular worksheet is broke down incredibly granularly, and you may not need it, but it's a way of thinking through all the aspects of a job or a career that you might have, okay? So on the left-hand side, you can see here the categories, or how we've divided up the different aspects of work, right? And for each category, we want you to think through, well, what's my preferred option here? How willing am I to compromise on this? And what is the worst case that I will take? Okay, so you could have location. You may live in West Cork, and you say, look, my preferred location for a job is within 30 minutes of Cove, and you know, that is my preferred option in terms of location. Compromise, okay, you might say, well, I'm willing, there might not be a big enough pool of work or jobs that I might be able to do in this space. I am willing to compromise a bit. And you might say then, at worst, you know what, I'm willing to travel to Cork City or Dublin 2 days a week and go into an office, but for the rest of the week, I want to work remote. Okay, so it's a real kind of getting into the real nitty gritty of what do I need to work with my life in terms of this job. You can consider the contract type that you would like to have. And again, what is my preferred? What is really going to work for me? And am I willing to compromise on this? What is the worst case? Time commitment. Look, depending on where you are in your life, there will be hard stops for you in terms of time commitment. So, you know, your preferred might be, I'll do Monday to Friday, 10 to 4, because I've got other caring commitments around that. But at worst, you know what, I can do 2 days at the weekend and take 2 days off during the week, right? So really you think through each of the elements of what you're looking for in a job. And this is going to change depending where you're at in your life, the circumstances that you have to deal with. But what it does show you is, what is it that I'm really looking for? Without even thinking of the title of the job or the role, what is it that I'm looking for? And if you go down this, as I say, this is quite detailed, and I will share the link. And you can think about your responsibility level that you want, how challenging you want the role to be, different types of tasks. So really thinking about, like, well, what tasks do I enjoy? What do I really want to be doing on a day-to-day basis? How willing are you to travel? The team that you might work with. Do you want to work with a big team, a small team? Do you prefer to work alone? Type of management, and the sector potentially. And then there's space for you to add more things as well. Okay. It's a very practical way of thinking, what are all the elements of the job that I would want, and where am I willing to compromise? So it gives you kind of one sheeter where you're like, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what I'm willing to accept. Okay. Any thoughts on this? Has anyone ever used something like this before? And you can add it to the chat, and you don't have to if you don't want to. I know we don't have a lot of time. As I said, I will share these links after the session. So I will continue.
It's really interesting to think to Lucy that kind of we are the kind of directors, you know, or the conductors of our own career. Because sometimes we can just fall into a place where we find ourselves in a you know, on a trajectory and feel like we have no choice. But I think, you know, what you're saying is actually you do. And here are some tools that can help you take that pause and consider, because I mean, I think you're so rightfully suggested how the world was changing. So for all of us, it's probably something we should do reasonably often, not just, you know, post-college.
Absolutely. This is an ongoing thing. And I think, you know, our pool of choices will be small sometimes, and they will be larger other times, right? We do have choice. Look, given life circumstances, we may not have a lot of levers, you know, in that choice. We may just have to do certain things, and that's fair. But when you take the time to think about it, at least you know why you're doing what you're doing. You know that you've thought through these pieces, and I can compromise here, but I can't compromise there. And it's, we're not all just going to walk out into our dream career because we've sat down and done a course or done a workshop, but it's taking ownership. That's what it is. It's taking ownership of your career. And at least then, you yourself know why you're doing what you're doing. Okay. And I think that's the key piece. And like the reason that I like this design aspect, I found this visual, and it just explains exactly what I think. This is our plans in life and in our career sometimes, and this is the universe's plans for us. Okay, things happen, changes come all the time, and as Ken referenced earlier, the world is very dynamic and it's very shifting at the minute. 2 years ago, it completely changed for everyone, and we're still working with the aftermath of that. And, we are living in a changed world. How we work has changed. Why we work has changed. That for some people, it was a reflection moment in 2020 that allowed them to change and to shift. But like out in the world today, organizations are dealing with other challenges, like how are we adapting to tackle the climate crisis is a big thing for organizations, and there's more legislation and stuff coming down the road. It's going to change how we're doing things. And I suppose the key piece to me is if you're sitting in an organization and it's dealing with challenges, but then you're also having to navigate the challenges in your own life as well. So I think this visual really brings back to me how all of this comes together. This is apparently a Malay proverb. I still need to verify that. But this idea that a tree with deep roots laughs at storms. And for me, it's understanding yourself. What am I about? What's important to me? What are my needs, both in life and in career? If you know those things, as the world adapts and changes around you, you can actually look out for opportunities that can continue to meet those needs. You're more likely to be able to meet your needs and wants if you've taken the time to really understand what are they, and you will actually see opportunities a lot more clearly then in terms of your career, and as I said, in a broader sense in your life. I know that was a whistle-stop tour, and I hope that the tool will be useful, and that values reflection can get you thinking. I will put links. I'll throw, while we're starting the panel now, I'll throw all the relevant links into the chat so that you have access to it all. And if you have any questions, you can find me in these places. But yeah, thanks very much for the time.
Super, really, really interesting, Lucy. Thank you very, very much for that. I'm just learned so much myself, and I guess tuning into who we are and understanding what we want, at various stages in our lives really brings us into a position of taking control and directing our career, which I think you relayed, and how the design thinking process might help with that. Look forward to seeing that link on Roots and Shoots by Deloitte. So thank you again. So now, just conscious of time and everybody's pressures, would love to move on to our next piece of the session today, which is a panel discussion. So I would like to introduce you to our two panelists here today. So we have Orla Bannon, first up, who's Director of Career at Trinity College Dublin. Orla, thank you very much. You're
no
most
problem at all,
welcome.
Anya. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. And we have Emma Keller, who's a Director of the People Group.
Hi,
so thank you, Emma, for joining us here today. You're very welcome. Thank you. Well, I guess, guys, we've had lots of inflection or looking in as to kind of us as individuals, kind of how we control our career. And we all know that kind of, the future of work when it comes to that skills that are really, innovation skills are really at the core of the future of work, and kind of whether you're hoping to set up your own business, whether you're hoping to pivot in your career, or you just want to become a more attractive maybe candidate to future employers, that without the right skills, that's going to be extremely difficult. So what I'm wondering, as my first question, and maybe I pose this to you, Orla, is what skills do you think are required really to ensure people are set up for success in the future of work?
Well, I think that's evolved a lot over the past couple of years, Anya, and we've really seen that we mostly work with graduates from Trinity going into the workplace. And some of those are people who maybe came back to Trinity to study and have a lot of experience behind them as well. And we've really seen a change in employers and what they're looking for. And the most important thing they're looking for now is adaptability to change. Things have been moving so quickly. The economy is moving so quickly. Technology is moving so quickly. So that ability to adapt to change and to be resilient within yourself to deal with that is something that we really see that employers are looking for at the moment. And we've all been through so much over the last couple of years. I think one of the challenges there for all of us is reflecting back on our own ability to deal with change and to be able to articulate that to an employer or in an interview situation.
Okay.
Kind of following from that, another thing which I think is very important is about team working, and not team working in the conventional sense, but team working in blended environments, using digital tools for collaboration and team working. So the whole concept of team is now very, very different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And how you communicate there, how do you collaborate, how do you get the most out of that, how do you innovate as a team in a blended environment? And I think, that's something that, people really need to think about and be able to show skills in that area too.
Super, super interesting. And Emma, you're at the coalface. You're meeting enthusiastic applicants plus employers.
Yes.
What skills do you think are required to ensure people are set up?
Yeah, I think it's to follow on from what Orla said. I think they're big things that we're constantly talking about. I think no matter how the world changes, resilience is something that I think is always at the forefront. For us, we're kind of looking at what's known as a combination specialist. So the hard skills and the soft skills mixed together. Because the hard skills are the technical things you need to get a job, right, for a certain job. The soft skills it's the piece that makes you employable. So it is that resilience, that communication, that teamwork. It's all those things that an employer will actually look at and go, okay, great, you can do A, B, and C. But in regards to the wider picture, how do you get across your communication? How do you get across teamwork? They are things that are just at the forefront. And I think as time
Goodness me, has Emma frozen there?
Yeah, I think so.
Am I frozen?
No, you're okay. You're back with us, Emma. Yeah.
The technical word, right? That's what it is. But no, I think it is. I think it's just that combination piece, Anya, between soft and hard skills. And it's understanding those and how they will work going forward.
Super, super. But look, like many people who are kind of here today, maybe contemplating a complete career change, or they're looking to further their studies to enable that. So maybe Emma, we might start with you. What advice would you give to someone here today who's considering a career change, in terms of how they approach potential employers, and what these employers might be looking for, particularly from a pivoter?
I think, and I remember I said this last time only that I spoke up in Tangent, and I thought it was amazing, and I stand by it. The fact that anyone is willing to take that leap and invest in themselves, that is the most attractive feature, I think, to anybody, is saying to a potential new employer that I've left the stability of what I've known for years because I want to go in a completely different direction, or actually I've got this amazing idea and I want to invest in myself and I want to go out to investors. Just having that behind you, for definitely, I think for anyone, is a super attractive piece. Just taking the risk to invest in yourself, going forward, looking at, what can I do? Networking, who can I talk to? It's actually putting yourself outside your comfort zone. They want to see that you're willing to do that. And we see it a lot here with transitions. We talk to those that want to change jobs and maybe go from fast moving consumer goods and want to get into the big four. That's a massive career transition. And seeing people do that, you have to go the extra mile. So I definitely think investing in yourself, upskilling, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and networking are invaluable.
Super, super, super interesting. And Orla, you yourself there mentioned that you very often have people coming to you who are thinking, of pivoting.
Yeah.
What would you have advice for them?
I think one of the things, and it's kind of building on what Emma said there, I think it's very important that you can show that you know how to learn. And I think that's really important. It's another key skill that's looking for. So, and I think people who've made that decision to change career or to pivot in their career, about being able to clearly articulate why they're changing, what's driving them, back to the values that Lucy was talking about, being able to say, this is the reason why I'm doing that and why this new particular role and direction, this is the research I've done, this is where I feel I now fit better. So it kind of brings all of that together. Maybe it fits more with your values, and being able to show to an employer, I've really thought about this, I've done my research, I've considered this. It really shows a level of commitment, I think, to an employer to say, well, you know, this isn't someone just sending in an ad hoc or making an ad hoc decision. They've really looked into this. But I do think that being able to show that you know how to learn and that you're proactive in advancing your own skills is really important. And that's why doing a lot of these types of programs and courses are really beneficial and can really show that your commitment to that to a potential new employer.
Thank you. Thank you, Orla. So really, it's not enough to say you went to college anymore. You know, there is an expectation that employers are kind of, or we can tell employers what else we have to offer. So maybe, you know, when reviewing a CV, then building on that in terms of self-development, Orla, any kind of recommendations?
Well, I think for me, you know, people always immediately think about, well, what have I done in my work environment? But you do so much outside of work as well. And I think particularly in terms of, you know, if you want to maybe move into more of a leadership role, you might not have had a chance in your current job to do that, but you could be doing a lot of things outside. You know, you could be working with the charity or an organization or in sport that really help you develop those leadership skills. So don't be afraid to think a little bit outside the box, be a little bit innovative in bringing your skills in and your experiences from different areas. And I think it is important, coming back to my earlier point, to be able to show how you've thought through the path you're on. So even if you're continuing and maybe progressing up a path, or whether you're pivoting and going in a different path, to be able to show your thought process behind that. And it's not just kind of you're just floundering and reaching out to any other thing that's out there, that you actually have a planned approach to it and to think through that, and that you're on kind of a trajectory that you want to be on. And I think that's very important.
Okay, very interesting. And Emma, over to you now. Wondering also about, so employers are looking at CVs, they're coming in. We've all kind of spoken there a little bit about self-development, but you know, what are they looking for? So I'm an employer, they're looking at a CV. What would they like to see in terms of self-development, in terms of proaction and all of that?
No, I think even to follow on from Orla's point, you'd be surprised only the amount of CVs we would see that people don't put their outside of the 9-to-5 person. It's amazing. Like, there's no interest, there's no hobbies, and I get that sometimes don't have it. You know, some people's interest could be shopping. That's okay, but it's bringing that human piece into that job. And I think every employer, you know, we do a lot here with, you know, thought leadership and senior clients, and we talk about what they should look for in a CV. And it comes down to that personal piece. So who are you outside that 9-to-5? Like, if you are managing the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, that's amazing. You should be talking about these things. I think employers want to see who you are outside the 9-to-5. They want to see the fact that you have grown, whether that is through your current role, whether some people might not have the opportunity to step up in a job. So if they haven't had that opportunity, what have they expanded in the role? Have they gone after something different within that company? Went, actually, I specialize in this, but there was an opportunity for me to do as a secondment here for 6 months. It was completely out of my comfort zone, but I wanted to push myself. It is back to that personal development, but it is about not just what's on the paper and what we think should be on the CV. It's the person outside of it. So what do I do outside of work? Who do I hang out with? What books do I read? Am I part of, like, all those things translate back into the type of person you will be in an organization.
No, really, really relevant and very well put, Emma. And I guess, you know, very often people who move into adult education are kind of returning to work after maybe a career break. It could be after, you know, due to maternity leave, maybe a family issue, or due to COVID-19. And, you know, the thoughts of returning to the workplace can be really, really daunting for for many people.
Of course.
You know, but there are things that, you know, people can do to take control of of the situation and help themselves re-enter the workplace.
Yeah.
Maybe Emma, you might take this one. Might you share kind of your tips and any advice you might have for people who are coming back into the workplace, perhaps after a short break?
I think it's actually a really big thing. The first thing someone says if they've done a career break, maternity, is, oh my God, how do I justify this? I don't think you need to justify anything. I think we all have had career breaks, or we've all, maternity leave, or whatever it might be, a personal reason. It's been a reason. My biggest thing that I say to anyone who's going back into work is, do not feel guilty. Because that's a big thing. And I would work with a lot of parents coming back to work after maternity leave or paternity leave, depending on the situation. And I say to them, they're like, oh, the guilt. Okay, the guilt just has to stay at home. You are investing in your future. You're investing in your loved one's future, or those that you support. So that's a big thing. The second thing that I always would say to anyone returning to work, or, if they want to upskill and decide that they're going to go into part-time education, that's a big commitment and life has to change. But the one thing I'd say to them is just taper your return. So instead of trying to go back and doing something 5 days a week, if you want to go back to work or you want to upskill, look at what works for you. Is that a 4-day week, or is that a 5-day week but reduced hours? I think with the way the world is developing and changing, I think flexibility and conversations are the forefront of everything. So you need to be able to sit down with your employer, or you need to be able to sit down with whoever is at home with you and go, look, this is what I want to do. I need some flexibility and adaptability. And I think it comes back to the communication piece, doesn't it? By talking. So there are two big things for us. And the third thing that we really see with people who go back into the environment after a period of time is, and it's so funny, I've had so many conversations where I'll just say to a candidate, they're like, oh, it was really hard. And I'm like, well, did you go back in there and reassert yourself? And they're like, what? And I'm like, the business has gone on and changed over whether it's 12, 6, 9 months or 2 years you've been gone. You need to go back in there and be like, well, this is why you hired me to this job. This is what I'm really good at. You need to kind of build that confidence in yourself. And I think everyone's situation is different. There's no one tip I can say to someone, but I think it's about giving yourself a break. You're going back into work after a period of time. You're deciding to take on a part-time education piece on top of a work-life balance. Something has to give, but it is generally just about stepping back and going, what's going to work for me? How can I align that where I'm going forward? This is why I'm good at what I do. Your business needs to work with you, your employer, and it's just those around you.
So it's about grasping the opportunity and not being afraid of having taken a career break. It's more maybe even, to be able to talk confidently about it and the impact it's had and the things you might have done.
And we see that all the time, Anya. I think for me, as humans, we're very tempted to let personal development fade into the background. It's nature, because there's never a good time to look for a new job. There's never a good time to invest in ourselves. It's never going to work. But for years of doing this, those that have done it and have taken the jump and I actually went and upskilled or whatever I've done, they're just so much more successful, but they're so much more happier. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day. And I love when that candidate will come back on and go, I went on that course, I decided to take that job, or I've now gone up and set up my own business and I love it. And I think we have to put personal development at the forefront of what we do.
Super.
I might add to that, Anya, because I think it's very important that you value yourself as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think, oh, I haven't worked in a while, or I haven't done this, and you nearly feel on the back foot going back in. But you have to put yourself first and say, I value myself. I value the contribution. An employer is going to be very lucky to have me, or any business is going to be very lucky to have me. And to place that value back on yourself, and to be clear about being able to articulate that value to others, and I think that's really important. And I think back to a point Emma made, doing your research. If you're returning to the workplace, do your research. Are you going back into a similar role? As Emma said, has the role evolved? Have things changed? Has the company changed? Do your research before you go back, and really be clear about what you're getting back into, and really think about, is that what you want to be getting back into? And don't feel constrained by that. As Emma said, don't feel the guilty thing. Oh, I took time out, I have to go back. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You can leave and you can go and do something else. So the options are there for you. But a lot of it does come back to really valuing yourself, valuing your skills and what you can bring. And I think that's really important.
No, super. And I think that brings us kind of nearly around the full circle and back to what Lucy was saying to us in the beginning, which is all about this, piece about kind of tuning into who you are, which is related to what you've just said, Orla, also what you said, Emma, you know, there is no shame in taking time out, you know, and there's no shame in wanting maybe to work differently. That's actually having had that look inside and realizing, you know, what you wanted to do. But look, really would love to kind of continue the conversation, but I know time is ticking on for everybody. I'd just like to thank you, Lucy, for being here today. Really interested, and I see lots of people there looking for links, Lucy, so you're going to be busy with your career toolkit, so super on that. Thank you, Orla, also really insightful. Welcome. And Emma, you know, really grounded in the world of reality of what both employers and indeed individuals do. And I think, you know, we all agree, and indeed, just to make everybody aware that we do have a number of programs on at the moment. They're postgraduate programs. We're running them in Dublin, Kilkenny, and in Kildare. So we're out in the regions. They're in creative and cultural entrepreneurship, innovation and enterprise development, and healthcare innovation. So lots happening here in Tangent for people who'd like to find out more. The programs are level 9s, supported by Springboard Plus. So for people unemployed, they're fully funded. And it's a great way to embrace some of the ideas, I guess, and put in practice some of the things that we learned and heard about today. So look, I'd just like to say thank you all, a big boola boss to all of our panelists, attendees, and I hope you all have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.